The philosopher bell hooks wrote, "The function of art is to do more than tell it like it is. It's to imagine what is possible." Yet it seems there are still limits to what is possible for specific groups of people that are represented in cinema. Today, I will discuss representation of women in cinema, the Bechdel-Wallace test, and some ways to identify misrepresentation in media. But first, let's understand what unequal representation means. The U.S. Census Annual Report of 2018 states that women make up over 50% of the population of the United States. You heard that right. There are more women in the United States than men. Fact. In a report compiled by Dr. Martha M. Lausen for the study of women in television and film at San Diego State University, females only comprised 29% of protagonists featured in the 100 top domestic grossing films of 2016. And in 2017, Dr. Lausen also reported that female characters only represent about 30% of all speaking characters, which includes major and minor characters. So if women are over 50% of the population, then they are not accurately represented in cinema at this percentage. Writers' rooms are still predominantly male, and females only comprise 38% of major characters when the film had a female writer or director. So how can we actively see representation in real time? Well, one way is to measure the representation of women in fiction. An example is the Bechdel-Wallace test. So what is the Bechdel-Wallace test? Well, the Bechdel-Wallace test is a test named after cartoonist Alison Bechdel and her friend Liz Wallace. And this test examines if a film has the following requirements. The movie must have at least two women with names in the film who talk to each other about something other than a man. Now, there are also other tests for representation and equality out there, and I highly encourage you to look at the media you ingest through these lenses. Okay, so what movies have passed or failed the Bechdel-Wallace test? Well, some films that failed: Star Wars original trilogy, only has 3 female characters, none of them talk to each other. Harry Potter, few like Goblet of Fire, Deathly Hallows Part 2, where again, no women talk to each other at all. And the Avengers, no women talk to each other. In films that passed, well, surprisingly, Kill Bill Volume 1 and 2, American Pie, Aliens, Hidden Figures, just to name a few. So what does it matter if representation is equal in movies or TV? Well, sexism in cinema affects your world. For example, imagine your kids are watching a movie, and in this movie is an average Joe who is learning how to fight because he must save the world. But who's teaching him? A woman is. A woman who's faster, smarter, and tougher than he is. But she's not even the lead character. And women are often the ones helping the man be better in film and TV. Remember that in Dr. Lausen's study, women make up only 29% of all sole protagonists or heroes. The truth is that movie that your kids are watching, it's Ant-Man. It's owned by Disney. The representation doesn't match the reality. If the world really is 50-50, then our films should reflect that. In a 2019 study by Common Sense Media called "Watching Gender: How Stereotypes in Movies and on TV Impact Kids' Development," television shows and movies that specifically target children, the male characters outnumber female characters by a factor of 2 to 1. Male characters are represented more frequently on U.S. children's television shows, and boys are constantly depicted as more knowledgeable, more aggressive, and less differential than girls. Now, if you were aware of these types of biases in our media and literary culture, it could help lead to a better understanding of how these affect worldviews and perspectives of not just ourselves, but our children as well. Wrapping up, we learned that misrepresentation happens even before anything hits the screen, be it big or small, and that there are some ways to help us identify misrepresentation, such as the Bechdel-Wallace test, and also how to start looking for these types of misrepresentations, not just in mature shows, but in ones for kids as well. Charles Darwin said, "Great is the power of steady misrepresentation," but the history of science shows that fortunately this power does not long endure. If we are aware of the ways that inequality weaponizes media, we can do better to educate ourselves towards progress despite its intentions.